Hey, what is up, y'all? Welcome to Conversations with Heavy Cardboard, where I'm happy to be joined by Jon Manker. He is the lead developer at Ion Game Design, also has a number of games that he has designed, developed, co-designed with the likes of Phil Eklund and others that include everything that's, well, below him, as well as other games. There we have Pax Viking, the upcoming Pax Viking, Expedition Zetta, BIOS Origins, BIOS Megafauna, Crusader Kings, and more. So, Jon, thanks for coming on today. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so finally, I'm excited because you and I, we chat via email from time to time, but you and I have not been able to get together for any face-to-face stuff since we last saw each other, I guess, at Essen, right?
At Essen, that's correct.
Yep. So some background on you first, before we get into anything terribly heavy. So what got you into board games? How'd you get into the hobby?
Well, the hobby, so to speak, was probably through my family, where people played card games. I mean, regular card games when I was a kid. Not the least in the summer house where I'm at right now, where card games were the standard thing to do. Now, I'm much more interested in board games than basically anybody else in my family. So I caught this up. The interest for it, I caught it up from somewhere, I don't know. But what I do know is that I was interested in board games forever, as long as I can remember. When I was 9 years old, I designed a board game, and half a year later, I saw a board game quite like that game in the stores. It was about the Olympics, and it seems to be done in the same way as I thought about it. And that's when I felt, I want to do that. So since I was 9 years old, I wanted to work with board games. Now, that wasn't a career back then. So my way through life towards board gaming went meanderingly through music, movie industry, film script, post-production sound. I ran a web company for a while. I worked extensively at universities teaching film production, music, a little bit of music, mostly film, and then games. But since 2007, when I went into some research practice, I was part of a research project in the university. I started working full-time professionally with games, and have done so ever since. That started out as being a research thing, then it was starting a game bachelor's degree program, and then I worked in the digital industry for a while at Paradox and Interactive, and then I started my own company, Ion Game Design, where I went back to what my real passion is, which is board games. I love digital games, but if I need to choose, board games is my passion, and has been so since I was 9. So what got me into it, I don't know. This is my calling. I was born and destined to do this.
That's awesome. Now, okay, since you mentioned Paradox, now for those that don't know, Paradox, they've created a game or two that folks might have heard of, Crusader Kings and others. So is that how that partnership came about? Because I'll be honest, when I picked up Crusader Kings at Essen, I saw the Ion Game Design logo on the back of the box, and I was like, wait, what? How did that come about?
Yeah. Well, so that's our logo is there because I worked on it, but we didn't. I mean, the publishing responsibility was entirely on Free League, who is the publisher of that game. But we did help them. They called me because one of them, the lead designer of Crusader Kings, Thomas Härenstam, I got to know him at Paradox, and then he left Paradox too a little after me, and he started this company that's doing role-playing games and publishing books, coffee table books. So they did these things, and then they wanted to make a board game. So then they called me because they know I've done a couple of them, and in Ion we published a few of them. So I helped quite a lot with the design, and Besime, my closest colleague at Ion, and also the CEO of Ion, she helped them a little bit with the production planning and such. But they did most of it themselves for sure when it comes to that. But I was doing a lot of things in the design of that game. So it came about because I knew Thomas from Paradox, and Paradox knew me. So it wasn't they weren't raising any eyebrows when I joined the team.
Right.
But the connection was that kind of was through Thomas,
Okay.
the first one there.
So, okay, you said this is your passion and your calling. So, how did you go from, I guess, 9 years old, designing a game about the Olympics, to starting your own board game company with Ion Game Design? How did that happen?
Yeah. So I knew that doing games, someone worked with that. I'm from Sweden. I live in Sweden, and in Sweden there was one famous guy, one person known for being the game designer, and I knew that that's like his occupation, but it still wasn't like a career path in
Right.
any way, sort or form. But I did other stuff. I mean, I had other interests. My big interest in my teens were music. I played the viola, and I started composing and so forth. So I did a lot of that. At some point, I chose between music and film, and I felt I like film more, so why not do that? So I went on doing that for first studying cinematology, and then went to the film school, and then worked for 7 years in the film industry, parallel to other stuff, parallel to the web things I did. And then after that, I ended up doing stuff for the university based on my film knowledge, and worked there. All through this process, I did game design, but I never followed through on it professionally, so to speak. So I did game design when I had a web company, and always put a little game into the web pages. I did during my teens. I of course did a lot of role playing things, and that's a crazy good school for doing game design, I have to say, especially the old style role playing games where you kind of simulate a world and try to find formulas that represent this world, and without making it into a simulation, because you need the story there.
Sure.
And that's, I mean, it kind of fits into what we're doing with the games now. And needless to say, Phil is also a very good dungeon master, although he's not a heavy role play gamer, but he's very good at being a dungeon master. I heard from his son Matt. So it's there. The simulation, which is not simulating, where the game is the most important thing. Anyway, so I did that, and the music. Doing games was always a part of what I did, and finally, or at some point, then in the academia, when there was research grants coming my way, as always, I thought, okay, can I do something gamey with this? Can I do something with games? And the people managing the project said, yeah, sure. We're gonna study design praxis and trust between designer and team and such. And they were aiming for mobile phone applications and such. But if I wanted to look at game designers, go ahead. So I did, and I interviewed me and my colleague Ulf interviewed maybe 40 or 50 game designers in various digital game companies. But anyways, the bottom thing here is that the bottom line is whatever I did from 9 years old until when I started Ion at age well, what was that? Well, let's say when I started the research, when I started working only with games, I was age 36, 37. I started Ion when I was maybe 43, 42. So all the way, whenever I could, I fit some game into it because it was a passion, and it grew on me more and more that if I should be true to myself, this is what I should be doing. And economically, it's of course a stupid career choice, as you probably know yourself.
Right.
Especially leaving Paradox 2 years before they went into the stock market. But hey, it's my passion, and as long as you have the money you need to live and bring up your family,
Sure.
all the other extra money is actually, to be honest, and I really stand by this word. Then you really need to think about time and passion instead. And if I get enough money from doing game things, then that's what I should be doing. And that goes for everyone, by the way. If you get enough money from doing what you want to do, which is your passion, then go for the passion. Don't wait, do it now. So yeah,
Spot on.
I should have done it a little bit earlier, but I did it, and
Right.
I'm happy I did.
I mean, you and I are in the same boat, right? We're both doing something we're passionate about, and you know, doing enough to take care of ourselves, take care of family, and everything else comes, you know, is totally secondary. So I totally agree with that. But so okay, you wanted to start designing games. Did you want to start publishing games? Like, why did you go from, okay, I want to design, to opening your own publishing company, which is Ion? Like, why did you want to do that and not just design and have somebody else, another company, publish the games? Because for those folks out there that I imagine most everybody knows, publishing games is a lot of work.
Yeah. Yes, it's more work than I expected. But I don't know. It's much of the extra work is also fun. And I also have to say that I am an entrepreneur spirit from the start. I started my own, personal company at age 18 when you could start one. Both my parents are artists, by the way. My mother makes weaving textile art. My father he's a painter and makes copper graphic and computer things he prints in. Yeah. Anyways, they are artists. So I think I got from them many things, many good things. But one thing I got was this, it's natural to have your own little small business, and I just, when I was 18, I'll start a business, and I can do things from there. I've been doing all sorts of things, and it's transformed a little bit, but apart from that, I started the web company. I was, without any hesitation, starting the university department and a university, several educations at the university, starting up things, bringing it from idea to reality, basing things on some vision I have. That's a forte. I'm not an administrative type. I'm not good at maintaining this year after year after year. I can do it probably well, but it's I do other things better. And that's why I pretty early, or very early in Ion, decided the first one I'm going to bring in is a CEO. I don't mind giving away the power. And I had another CEO at first. We did some combination of, first year we did actually a combination of board games and mobile apps. But that fell apart because of aggressive headhunting of our programmers, and then I felt, all right, skip that. Let's focus entirely on board games. And at that point, I switched CEO, and then Basime came on, and that was very good. And we work brilliantly together. Really, she's fantastic, and we really click. I
was going to say, you guys are like two heads on the same coin. Like, you two are of the same mind. Absolutely. You make a very good pair.
Yes, we amaze at each other sometimes of how well we think and work together.
How did you meet, Besame?
Well, I actually met her in the university. She was working as the head of the international department at the university where I was working, called Södertörn University in Stockholm. She has then moved on to other universities working with international students in different ways. But that's where we met on some conference, internal conference where you discuss stuff within colleagues, and that was many years before Ion, so we just became friends first, but we always felt that it would be great to do something together, and we had some research applications planned, and such. But when Ion came, and I felt I need someone good for this, and I knew knew much earlier than her that being a CEO is something she was created for, and she's been taking this on very good, very good. Yes, she's important part of Ion's success.
All right. So let's back up a little bit, and let's talk now specifically about games and your designing games, because you are the lead designer at Ion Game Design.
I am the lead game designer.
And you have a bunch of collaborations, predominantly with Phil Eklund as well as others. But let's talk about your designs to begin with. And I'm going to butcher the pronunciation of it. It's the Viking game from 2003. You tell me the title.
Hird.
That I cannot say that, because the way it looks to me is herp, and I know that's not right. So, okay. Now, obviously, you are Swedish, and so the Viking heritage and the Viking history comes very natural to you. So is there a natural, I guess, affinity for that, or what is it specific? You have that. You have stuff like, obviously, all the space-inspired games with Phil Eklund, but you also have the upcoming Pax Viking. So the history of that, what is it about the history of the Vikings in general that attracts you so much?
Well, where I'm sitting now on the island of Tjörn in western Sweden, where I have my summer house. That's where my the part of my family which has been researched the most. Genealogy, is that the term? Anyways, when you research your heritage back in, and they've been doing that for a long while back, and there are I think certain tracks leading to Iceland, and there are not 100% certain tracks leading to actual Viking figures, and it seems very plausible that there are real heritage from the Viking era. I learned this maybe 15 years ago, all the way back. I mean, I knew it was long back, but I learned from it going back to the 800s. 1,200 years ago, and maybe even a little bit further. All of this is, of course, you go back to legendary material, but because there is no written records.
Written records, sure.
But, no, but anyways, it's as close as you can get. It's there, and that's fascinating. A few years before I learned about that, I went to Iceland to visit some friends who are chess players. And instantly when I went off the plane, and instantly when I was in Reykjavik, this windy, cold place was just home. It felt great, and sometimes you feel that about places, but not often. And I would say, apart from Sweden, Reykjavik and Iceland has been the most clearly place that clearly present this kind of feeling to me. This is totally unscientific, of course, but it's the feeling I had, and it was surprising to me to know. I knew we came from this island. I knew we came from the western part of Sweden, but the Viking heritage and that we actually had relatives in Norway and Iceland was unknown to me at that time. And a few years later, when I got to know it, it resonated in me very well. And then since then, I've been interested in taking on the Viking theme because I feel I am a legitimate representative of that culture without being elitist in any way about it. It feels very good about it. Feels good to be a part of it, and I think the history of the Vikings was to a large degree written by not by the Vikings but by others who maybe were felt they were conquered by them before. For the most part, I don't think so, because for the most part, Vikings didn't conquer anything. They traded, but they were pagans. They had another religion, and religion was very important at the day. So it was written by people who didn't share their religious beliefs, and by that they were painted as savages in a way that they weren't. They were successful and strong warriors, but that wasn't.
That's not all they were, right?
That was not all they were, and they would not have been able to build an empire which took them all the way from China all the way to Maine, or close to where you are right now,
right?
And down to the Iran, Iraq, Damascus, all of those places, and all the way up to they traded with the Sami people and spread their things around. Which is another thing. The Sami people and the trade they did with the Vikings were extremely important for the Vikings, and a very important commodity spread throughout Europe. That part of the story is rarely told, and that might be something for a future game. Not the least since my grandfather was a researcher of the Sami culture.
So basically, you're just designing games about your lineage, about your heritage.
Yeah, my lineage is definitely inspiring me anyway. And when it comes to space, I mean, usually you dig fairly close to where you stand when it comes to the point that it's getting. I mean, you really need to choose what game do you want to do now, right? So you might have 100 ideas, but when you really have to choose, what do you choose? And I think you should go for your what you're the most passionate about, or what feels the most strong. And if you manage to do that, it's usually close to where you're, such as my lineage, or my strong feeling for all the good things I find in the Nordic countries and the Nordic cultures, which I think has some kind of relation to good things that were existing in the Viking society prior to the few hundred years of other influences. And so the second thing you mentioned, that I do games about space, that was my big interest as a kid. I bought I got for my birthday it's not called binocular. What's it called? The thing you
telescope.
Look at the stars.
Telescope. Yeah.
So I got a telescope, a mirror telescope, and I used it many times, and I read many books about space. It was a big interest of mine from age 7, 8 until actively until maybe 14, 15, when music took over. But it's always been something I have looked one extra time about, and kept myself updated on throughout the years.
So it's just it was just, again, it's all the theme that I'm noticing most with you when it comes to whether it's designs, whether it's anything else that we talk about today. It's all about passion. It's all about things that inspire and that you're eager to learn about and eager to talk about. And by talk about, I mean through the designs of games, it seems.
Yeah.
So how did
definitely.
I
want to say one more thing.
Please.
When you say passion, I think my one more passion is actually my passion for board games, and the passion for how good board games can be as an art form, or as something you experience as a story or art form or experience together. There's so many good things coming from it, especially the social part of it. And there are so many great board games that's that's, well, many people are discovering them now, but I can see how taking it one or two notches up in complexity or content makes it richer for anybody, even those not not enthusiastic about board games, but there's so much more richer games to experience. So that's another passion of mine, that I want to make games which opens up, which leads other people into playing more and more complex games and acquire a more rich taste for board gaming, which
Yes.
which is part of, I mean, I guess you have the same thing from doing this, I mean, spreading the word, but it's definitely part of Expedition Zetta, where you have several modules you can mix and match how you want. I am constantly adding, solo versions to Greenland and Neanderthal, co-op versions to, solo versions to Transhumanity, doing some of these small things and working towards having something that can fit everybody in the different games. And obviously Pax Viking, which is the ambition is to make a game that is more approachable in the Pax series, so more people can discover these fantastic games. And also I did Space Diamonds for High Frontier, which is, the first step to start to learn High Frontier. Just one of many, which there are many other things done in the new version of High Frontier, which I didn't do, but I was a passionate, I was agitating is maybe the wrong word, but I was passionate of getting this multi-step path into High Frontier, a part of the High Frontier 4 game system.
Which I mean, obviously, I'm a huge fan of this theory, because the more people that you can do that for, the broader the audience. I mean, both for Heavy Cardboard, but me as a gamer, just more people around the world that we'll be able to play with. I mean, if you look in chat right now, right? And I just knowing some of the folks and where they are, we have people from Scandinavia in there. We have people from Australia. We have people from Boston. We have people from Denver. We have people from all over the globe right now. And that just kind of is exactly what it is that you're talking about, with just being able to, the social aspect, as well as being able to reach more people and show people that not only is there games like Catan and Ticket to Ride, which absolutely have a place in the world for that, but if you want to take it a step further, oh, hey, there's also these other games. It's like whenever I would be at the poker table and people would ask me, hey, or if I'm out and about, whatever, before the world ended here, what do you do? And I say, hey, I host a podcast and YouTube channel. Oh, what about board games? Oh, like Risk and Monopoly. And I'm like, well, yes, but no. And then I try and give some examples, whether it's something like a PAX game or a High Frontier or something like a Arkwright or something along the lines, to show people, wow, there's this whole world of board games out there, and they're not all, just roll and move or, Trivia Pursuit or anything like that. So this is awesome to hear, because you being able to make these things more approachable just helps us collectively. So I am totally supportive of that.
Happy to hear that, and I'm if I succeed in doing that, it's definitely something I will look into the mirror and be very proud about. And I have to say, I said this maybe I told you before. Anyways, it's another part of this. I mean, making more people being able to approach and appreciate a broader variation of games. That's great. And also, I believe in art or experiences like art, such as game. We don't need to discuss where board games are art or not. I obviously think board games are art.
Oh, I think they clearly are.
So, but anyways, it's I think art has many important things. One important being inspiration, and I think that one of the reasons why robotics is big in Japan since 2 decades back is because that was so strong in their comics series, comic books in the 50s, 60s, and people read them and as kids, and then when they grow up, when they become and later on in the career, they are managing some kind of research facility. What are you going to do? I mean, just like me, what game do I want to do? Vikings, of course. Astronomy, and they love robots from these childhood things they experience. I want to do a robot. I want to build a robot. I can choose between this and this. I choose robots. And Neuromancer is another example, a book written by someone who don't understand anything about computers, but his ideas make people who think and build computers build the internet. I mean, it's not how it happened exactly, but it's there. It's inspiration. And if someone plays Expedition Zetta and just by playing it as a 10, 12, 15-year-old person, when they are 45, that kind of helps them think outside the box and build a warp device, a warp drive. It probably won't happen, but maybe I did something to make that happen. It's just something
That's an awesome way to think about this. I think there's something just inspiring kid-like wonder is the world needs more of that, and that's how we got to where we are on the positive side of things in the world.
Yeah.
So
yes.
How did you go about, let's stick on Expedition Zetta for a minute then. So how did you come about the design? I'm curious if there was a, oh wow, High Frontier inspiration type thing, and then, hey, let's make it a little bit, scaled that down a bit, or how I don't want to speak for you. How did that go? How did that come about?
I had played High Frontier before I did design Expedition Zetta. However, it wasn't an inspiration as the core inspiration for it. It came some ideas when I made the map. I bounced the map of Phil and some of the inputs from him. Of course, being him came from High Frontier, so some of the changes on the map, but mainly about how you moved on the map actually. Anyways, no, and I think this is a very interesting thing. I usually ask people this: what was the first thought? What was the spark? And I think it's interesting for some reason. Fascinating, I would say, to hear about these first sparks. I don't see a pattern of it, and I don't think there is a pattern, but it's still interesting. So the first spark for Expedition Zetta was that I read somewhere, I think on an online article, that they now discovered that we don't have 10 to the 19 or 10 to the, I think it was 10 to the 17 stars. It was now 10 to the 19 stars in the universe, blah, blah, blah. And I just felt, okay, that's an incredible difference. And I don't understand it at all.
Sure.
You can't grasp this number. It's impossible to grasp these numbers. And before I had finished the article, being an old game fanatic or a board gamer or a role-playing gamer, actually, maybe even more, I started to, yes, there is a way. I can grasp this number. I just grasp a bunch of D12s, and then I have a number, or actually D10s. D100s was my first idea. So it's like 10 to the 19. So I need 19 D10, D1200s, or 9. So 8, 9. So that's where I start to think I can have a bunch of dice, not more than I can fit in my hand, and that generates as many different combinations as there are stars in the universe. And then we're talking insane numbers. I mean,
yes,
if every grain on sand on Earth would be, if you count all the grains of sand on Earth, that each grain of sand would represent, I think, 400 stars or something. It's just ridiculous. But this, I have a bunch of dice. I have it there. So from that, I started designing a game about where I randomized the entire universe with a dice throw. That was the spark from this article. And then from that was the kind of boundary. that I set up for myself. And then what can you do with that? And pretty soon I went into, you want to travel there, you want to see, I want to discover these stars. So it pretty fast went into a warp drive. And then there were some iterations, but the first path of this game was unusually straightforward. Usually a game it can go much more sideways in the beginning and become something completely different. But many of the first decisions of Expedition Zetta was actually quite stick
Sure,
did
right,
stick
yeah.
to the design. Yeah. So and then when it came to do the the finalizing of the game, then it was many different things going here and there, and the modular system and all of this.
But the core things were there
The core
early
thing
on.
was
Yeah.
kind of early, and that's where the design idea came from, to make something where you generate the entire universe. And that's another thing which I think is important. I borrowed the term from a Swedish game company called DICE. They make shooting up games or first-person shooter games, Battlefield and those. So a person there told me about this once, and they have something called they have certain values they put, maybe 2, 3, or 4 into a game, and these key features are not to be tampered with. They should be there. And that was one of those in Expedition Zetta. So randomizing the tinier universe should be there. And that's why I had to redesign the whole randomization, random generator, and all the numbers when I read an article maybe 1.5 years into the design process saying, oh, it's not 10 to the 21, it's now 10 to the 23 stars. Oh my goodness. All right. Well, back to the drawing board. I mean, I can't do
Fine.
a game well, I have it's if someone rolls and it's not the entire universe. No, so that's when I went from having, whatever's 9 D100s to having 11 D12s. It's surprising how few dice you need to add to add another 100 times. 100 times.
Right, which is when I go to sleep, I tend to watch a handful of different things on YouTube. I have YouTube playing on in the background, and one of the most predominant things is space exploration, or how vast the universe is, and how just like comically, like laughably big it is. Like how it literally it boggles the mind, right? And it's I love that was the inspiration. You read this article and said, here, I can model that. There we go. And I think that's amazing. I've never heard that. And I'm the world's biggest 5-year-old because I want to know the why about things. And I think it's fascinating to hear these things. So obviously you know Phil, you've mentioned Phil. And when we say Phil, we mean Phil Eklund, designer of numerous games, head of Sierra Madre, which has partnered up with Ion Game Design. So how did that meeting come about? How did that you and Phil, how did you meet, and the background on all that?
Yeah, well, so if I'm gonna go all the way to the Spark again, then I was actually on an island outside of on an island on the east coast of Sweden called Gotland. There is a place called Fårö, which is where the Swedish famous film director Ingmar Bergman resided, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, he there close to on that little part, me and a few friends rented an old windmill where we were sitting and we were writing a little bit of texts in the research projects I was working on, and we were all board game interested people. And so they were writing texts in the morning and lunch, and then in the afternoon it shifted towards board gaming, which was great. And then we played board games until late.
Nice.
And one of those guys had a board gaming group in Gothenburg. His name is Staffan Björk, and his board gaming group had the fun thing that they had chosen a bunch of designers, and each person in this board gaming group had 4 designers assigned to him, or something. I think it was 4. And Staffan Björk, one of his designers was Phil Eklund. So his task was to buy all the games Phil Eklund produced and learn them and present them to this group, and they played them. So
I love this idea right here, just off the cuff. All right,
Yeah.
so every game group now is going to have that. You have these designers. I love this idea. This is awesome. All right, please continue.
That was a great idea, and so I don't live in Gothenburg. Otherwise, I would love to have been part of that group.
Right.
But he brought High Frontier to the windmill on Fårö. So we played it. The others bailed out. They said, "Oh no, I think we're gonna go for a walk." And so it ended up being me and stuff playing this game. It was just the 2 of us. I didn't understand actually what was going on. I guess you know the feeling.
Oh yeah.
When it comes to Phil's games, and but we played for 5 hours. They came back. They did some food. Then they asked us, "Are you done soon?" And Staffan said, "Yeah, well, I could have won a long time ago, but we are just playing because it's fun." And I say, "Yeah, I guess you could. I don't know, but I'm preoccupied with trying to land on Comet Halley." And so I managed to do that. I didn't bring a factory. I didn't. So I had to decommission there. I don't know what was going on, but I landed on Comet Halley, and that was a great experience. I got 2 points, and he got maybe 30. It didn't matter.
It doesn't matter. I landed on Halley's Comet.
I landed on Halley's Comet. For crying out loud. So yeah, that was a great experience, and it was an eye-opener to me. I played other complex games, but there's something special about Phil's games, which I don't want to compare myself to him. I mean, he's special and unique. But I do things, and I have values when I do board games which are similar, and that's one part to why we work so well together, and that may be why it's resonated so well with me. So half a year later, when I went to Essen, I remembered this experience, and I said, I'm going to go and see Sierra Madre Games booth and see if there's something else there. And they had, I don't know, the new version of Pax Porfiana and the Bios Megafauna first edition, I think. I bought those and started talking to Phil a little bit. And sometimes you meet people who you become friends with. And Phil is I find him to be a very likable person. We think in ways, we are very different in some regards, but we have something made us, become friends or friendly or,
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's, and I can't really explain what it was, but it was one of those people you start talking to, and it's your friends from the get-go. So then we stayed in contact. I invited him to do some lectures in Stockholm. The next year in Essen, I helped him in the booth. The next year in Essen, Ion had started. We had games there, and then Besimo was on the train, and it evolved from there. But our game thinking about games have many similarities. That's important. We situations in how Ion was growing and the situation he was in, of course, played part in why we started to do more close collaborations. But I also think the friendship, I consider him one of my best friends, and that's great. That would have been regardless of if we were doing games together or not. Of course, you deepen these when you do things together. But he's a very good friend of mine as well.
All right. So I guess the natural progression then is, well, we have the Pax series. The Pax series has come around, and Pax Porfiriana, Pax Renaissance, Pax Emancipation, Pax Premier, et cetera, and then you said, you know what? I can try my hand at this. So, and now we have the upcoming Pax Viking. So,
Yeah.
Okay, so we've established where the theme comes from. We've established why you wanted to make, or at least I assume why you wanted to make a more, I don't want to say entry level, but a more approachable PAX game?
Well, you can say entry level.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an entry level PAX game. It's not an entry level board game. But
Yeah, I think that's a fair statement. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, but how did this come about? Because having played it now, it looks nothing like a PAX game. But yet, in the end, it still feels like a PAX game. So hold on, let me back up. For those out there that are unfamiliar, when we talk PAX game, PAX, PAX game, how would you describe to somebody that says, okay, I hear about this PAX series, what is a PAX game?
Yeah, well, I think now I'm going to answer the question, but I just want to say that Phil and his son Matt, Phil Eklund and Matt Eklund, really should be the ones. They have the correct answer, but I'm going to say what I think is a PAX game. But they know because they are the minds behind the game.
Sure, they're the ones that kind of founded the PAX series, if you will, and then you have Cole Worley that joined in. Exactly, I agree.
But I think a PAX game, it's a game about a certain period in time in history. It's a historical game. Could be in the future, but it's an economic game where you try to where money or economical assets play an important part in what you do to gain your advantages and ultimately win the game. It takes place over a shorter period of time compared to such games as the BIOS games or the Dominata games, whereas I would say a PAX game is a generation or less, thereabouts. And it has a market in where it's a card-driven game or a tile-driven game, as in the case with
PAX Viking.
PAX Viking.
Yep.
But you have a market to where you find the tiles, you can invest in the tiles. It's an open market. The information is basically open for the most part in the PAX games. And you go head to head, and there is a good deal of, I would say, abilities to affect other players, trying to outcompete them, not only by taking things to your own board or whatever and try to build something stronger than the other person, but you can actually, in various ways, such as in PAX Pamir, you walk to other places, tableaus, you do it in Renaissance as well to some degree, or you can place your cubes on their cards as in PAX Renaissance, PAX Porphyriana, sorry.
Right.
And so forth. So a heavy a focus on potential interaction where you can interact with other players. That's also part of a PAX style game.
All right, I think that's, I would agree with all of that. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't have much to add. So, what's the design process then with PAX Viking?
Well, PAX Viking. Let's talking sparks again. PAX Viking was actually a Dominata game from the start. So that was a game in the style of Greenland and Neanderthal. So it wasn't a PAX game.
Okay.
But as an idea I talked to Phil a little bit about it. He liked it. We did other stuff, so it was in the drawer, but it was there. But then, and in that case, the eastern part of Europe, which is this portrays the eastern routes mainly, would have been cards. That idea had them as cards, as they are in Greenland, where you go with your boats and you try and make the best out of that location and so forth. At Essen, we talked to Clay Ross of Capstone Games, and he was very interested in making a game, entry level, or it's not an entry. I don't remember, but anyway, a simpler version of a PAX game, because he really liked PAX Porphyriana, but he still thought it was a little bit too hard to grasp for people unfamiliar with board gaming, at least somewhat unfamiliar. So we talked about doing that together with him. I thought about it a little while, and I said, well, I can make the Viking game into a PAX game instead. I feel like the idea. I started working on it. It was a document which Clay and I shared with Clay and did some work on for a year. And then it was slow because we were so busy doing High Frontier 4, the design process of High Frontier 4, which took, I mean, it's an existing game, but we went through every bit and part of that game from the bottom up. And that took, I would say, entire 2019. So then I started working on Pax Viking again late 2019, and then I talked to Clay about this, or emailed him about it, but he hadn't the time to take part in this project right now, and I hope to be able to have some other project with him eventually. I really like him, and
he's good people.
Company.
Yep.
Yeah, he is good people. But anyway, so he opted out for Pax Viking, but we went ahead and did it ourselves and put it on Kickstarter. So I had a slow process of maybe 1.5 years, or even a little more, where I was like just making the ideas coming first as a Dominata game actually, and then as a PAX game, and then it was a very intense design. Then it picked up and slowly, but then it was quite intense in February, March, leading up to the Kickstarter. And then it's been going on and intensified in after the Kickstarter as well, because we started playtesting it and taking, small tweaks. Now it's only small tweaks, but very good tweaks, and I'm very pleased with where it's at now, and how playtests have shown that it works surprisingly well for 2 players, surprisingly well for 6 players, and works, I think, the best maybe for 4 to 5 players actually, and that's a good thing, because it's and it works splendid for 3 players as well. So without any special rules, it's just a system that works from 2 to 6, and then I have special rules for solo play and for co-op as well.
And again, that goes back to the whole accessibility to be able to bring more people into a heavier step into the gaming world.
Stepping towards heavier games.
So,
and we're talking about that. I just want to mention that I have one thing that was tweaked now in early May, I believe, was going from having 4 different victory conditions to having a selection from I made it into 16 victory conditions.
Which I love this, by the way.
Yes, and different difficulty levels, which are and then you choose 1 to 4 of them, so you can choose to have many different, or you can choose different difficulty levels of the victory condition. It's a simple idea, but it works very well in making the game less and more hard to play.
And it helps bridge the experience gap. So you can have, and as you're saying, there are 4 different levels of these victory conditions, to where if you have 2 experienced players and 2 brand new players, you can say, okay, these 2 easy victory conditions are for the 2 new players, and the 2 harder ones are for the experienced players, and there you go. And now we're playing the same game, but we're playing different games in a sense, and it's a more balanced playing field, to where everybody still feels like they're getting their money's worth, so to speak.
That's I think it works very well. And when you do that, they can, it's I think a less experienced player can more easily see and discern if someone is going for a hard, and trying to stop someone who's going for a harder victory condition, than actually plan to do it themselves. So it can still have the dynamics where you feel you're part of the other players' attempts, and you're actually somewhat interacting with the hard victory condition, although you can focus on winning using the simpler ones yourself.
And I think
yeah.
that's another hallmark of a PAX game, is being able to parse the game state and being able to see where people are in relation to the victory conditions, and that is a skill that comes from within the PAX games, and that kind of goes in line with the victory conditions and scaling those victory conditions to where some are more obvious than others as far as the game state being.
Yeah, and that's true. And I didn't mention that, and you're 100% correct. That's a definite trademark of the one of the trademarks, so to speak, of PAX games, that you have different victory alternatives, and one important part of the strategy when you play the game is to try and grab the victory when the opportunity arises, and try to outsmart the others so they don't have the opportunity when they arise, and be prepared to do so. And so, yes, it's a big part of it. And so I wanted to. That's important to bring into a game like Pax Viking if you want to make people prepared for playing other Pax games. And I think I really successed in doing that in these conditions we have. I'm very pleased with how it works.
So with a game like Pax Viking, where it has all the PAX games for that matter have a historical tie to them, was this more a mechanical? I know you had the overarching theme of the Vikings in general, but how were you able, which came first, I guess? You had the big theme, but then from there, does it become I have the mechanics and the various mechanisms here in the game, and then you match that to the theme, or the other way around, that you already had the theme, you had certain characters, you had certain factions, you had all of that to where the research went into it first, and then you matched the mechanisms to that? How did that work?
I think it's back and forth. Maybe the latter one the most, that you try to match mechanics to the research. One thing which I think is a little special about the games, which is similar and special in how me and Phil thinks about board games, is that we design mechanics. We don't only design assets to follow a theme, but we also design the mechanics to follow the theme. So if I have the way Vikings traveled, that heavily influences design decisions on how I want them to travel on the map. Then I have a map, and that comes from that I wanted to make it accessible. So it's not only research making the game, but the research is allowed to affect how we design mechanics, and we model mechanics based on this. And such as for Bios Origins, for example, we have something called fairly important early game thing called menopause, which is we build a little mechanic into it to simulate that it was probably important for the development of a society and the development of a possibility to remember technology and progress, really, that people became old enough to have menopause. And we simulate that with menopause because that tends to show that you get into an age where you do stuff after you had kids and so forth. So that's just one example, but it's always present when we design games that we want to design the mechanics as well. So it's not only, you don't have a mathematic puzzle or anything like that and have some kind of theme mapped onto it. Then we don't have a simulation. We don't have a lot of research and just want to simulate that because that doesn't work either. The game is always before the simulation. The game is always before, has more precedence than the research and the simulation.
When you say the
But
game,
it
what do you
needs
mean
to-
by that? The game.
The game we're designing. I mean, the
Okay.
experience you get from playing the game we're designing. So to me, there are many definitions of game, what a game is, and to me, a game is a designed experience approached with a playful attitude. That's my little definition of a game. So you have something. It's an experience that you have designed, and there's a playful attitude to it. Otherwise, you will include things like a courtroom or something.
Interesting.
But anyways, yeah. So a designed experience approached with a playful attitude. So that's the game. We want to design the game we are designing is more important than correctly simulate what actually happened. But having said that, we let the real facts influence the game design more than anything else. So we don't, if we have a game about space, for example, we don't go to planet X and find resource yellow. We go to Titan and we build an astrobiology site, or we found these type materials to be able to build this and this existing patent of something. And to me, I found this to be something that generates unscripted narratives, I would say, very, very efficiently, and it makes the game experience, as I find it, richer and more memorable. So that's important, and that's why it's those two factors are balanced in the way we design games, and I design games, so that you need to let the reality influence both the content, assets, and the mechanics, but
not be completely beholden to that.
Yes, but because the game comes first, it needs to be an interesting experience.
I wholeheartedly agree with you. I think that's awesome, and this is why I appreciate you guys that design these games, because I cannot do this, and I'm glad.
You haven't really tried yet, have you?
I have no interest, though. But you said do something you're passionate about, so I'll leave that up to you guys that do that stuff.
Well, I will carry the torch.
So, okay, you essentially wear three hats for one way to put it. You are a designer, you are a developer, and you are a publisher. Which do you enjoy the most between those three?
Designing. I mean, I am a game designer. That's my calling. But I'm also very passionate about bringing games and game design. I think I can do a good work at bringing them, with all these ideas and thoughts I have behind it. And that's also, I'm an entrepreneur spirit for sure, but it's definitely affecting my decision to run my own company, that I have these ideas, and I believe that I have something to bring, something to offer in that regard as well. But at Ion, we have, Besime is responsible for what we call the delivery, which is a big part. You think sometimes about game designing as designing the game, and you need to make the game as well, but I would say it's even bigger part of it to actually deliver it and give the word, put the word out that it's there, and manage a store and have all the economies.
Logistics is no joke. Yeah,
logistics. I mean, yes, don't get me started on logistics. So it's horrifying to know that a game you hold in your hand probably costs the most in transportation, more than anything else. So anyway, it is a part that Besime is handling, and that we call delivery, and the other part of Ion is development. So that's Paul. You met Paul too a few times. So Paul is managing that part, and then we have design and I'm managing that part. So I try to I do get involved quite a lot in the development of the company and in the business development side of it. But I am involved in a way where I inspire, and I am I want to give the people working with it, the other people working with it, so such as Besime, the right to decide. I want to give them the trust they deserve, so they have the final say in these matters.
It takes
When
a
it
lot of
comes to
trust.
development. Yes, trust is important, but I believe a lot in trust. I think I mentioned it to you sometime that long-term collaboration and trust is very important to me, and I think it's part of my Norse soul, and that's and I live by that word, and I think it's good to do so.
I agree. I have some Nordic blood running through my veins, so
Yes, you
I
do.
completely agree with that. I feel like that is a really big deal when it comes to just being human, right?
Yeah. Yes.
What my favorite question to ask designers, I think,
Good. Let's
is
see what that can be.
when do you know a game is done? Because you can tinker with a game till the cows
Yeah.
come home.
Yeah, I guess you get different answer on that one, right?
Yes. Oh, completely. Okay.
Yeah.
So
When do I know that
when do
game?
you feel? When do you know? Okay, this game is done. We're good.
Yeah. Well, to me, I think it comes down to my personality of not being an administrative guy. Really, I'm more of a visionary, and so to me, and that might make it easy to me to let go and have trust in the others to move it forward. But to me, when I feel it's I would do more good with other working on other games. That's one part of it. I feel that it's starting to go in circles. You know, it's you iterate and iterate and iterate, and at some point you really don't progress much, and sometimes you go back and you go further, and you start to feel that it's not going to progress much more unless you make big changes. And sometimes it doesn't need to be any more big changes. So I would say never. If you find yourself in that situation, you probably scrap the game and do something else. But the game also has the game as it is has a soul, and if you follow different processes of designing this game, and it starts to come into life and become what it is, you really can't change many things. You can change a lot, but you can't really change the soul of the game, and it is what it is. And then you can feel that here it is for whatever it is, and it's. I never thought about this so carefully, but one thing that comes to my mind now is that it's also about like music, especially when you play music, because I played music in my youth, as I told earlier. And there's a piece of music, whatever, a solo piece or a symphony, it's just there. It's a piece of art, of course, but it's really when you play it that it comes to life. And that's why it's so important to playtest, but it's also why at some point you just leave the game for what it is, and it's now in the hands of the players to make the best of their experience of it. And I'm really derailing now, but that's really why I love
No.
the gaming community and the way of the modding community and how people makes their own versions and house rules. And this is one thing I really love about board games as compared to digital games. I mean, if you play World of Warcraft and you just feel this doesn't really work for me. I want to be a paladin even though I'm a Tauren. Good luck in changing that, you know? No, you can't be a paladin. Why? If it would have been a board game, let's take the paladin card and put it together with the Tauren card, and there you go. So everybody can become co-designers of the game, and I love that part of board gaming. I really do, and I love when people have the passion of making, fan-based expansions and add-ons and whatever it could be fan-based, player aids or ways of suggesting how a game can go about. So it's so it's and that's a disparate answer to that question.
No, it's okay. So okay, let's talk about let's transfer that to a couple of games. So you said Pax Viking is currently undergoing development right now, right?
Yeah.
Playtesting. So how big of a role do you have in that? Because you, as the designer of it, and you said that Paul is in charge of the development of it. Now, obviously, you have a hand in that. But at what point do you just say, you know what? I've done what I've done, Paul, it's yours, and now it's ready? Or is it more hands-on? Like, where have you gone with that with Pax Viking?
At the moment, we have a structure in Ion where we have something called design release and design freeze. So when we do the design release, we present the games we are working on. Everybody, it's a small company. Everybody knows something about them, but we make it into an occasion, and where we have a design release, and this is Basime's idea, by the way. So kudos to her. But we have a design release, and then we present this to everybody in the company, and that marks the date when the development team starts working on it, even in a small pace or slow pace or whatever. But that's now part of the development team's work. But when you do games, at least to me, there is an overlap you can't deny. So when you start making the real assets, that affects the design decisions, that affects the design. So you can't have a complete, go directly from now I'm done, now they start working. That doesn't work for the way I work with games, and I think it's better if you have an overlap. So we have a design release. When we leave the game, we say they start working on the game. Then we have something called design freeze, and that's when we stop working at the design department on the game. And of course, we will still get questions. There will be things that's not logical or things that comes up when they are doing the final touches of the development process, which has been going on for a while, but now is going to be finalized. There are still things coming from play testing, maybe, but it's more of a reactive than active process from design freeze. And Pax Viking has passed the design freeze, so I'm not doing initiating changes myself, I would say. But I'm actually just today I did changed some cards. It's tiles, sorry.
Well, I mean, they're essentially the same thing. The difference between a card and a tile, but I hear you, right? Yeah.
Yes, sure. They are. Yes, sure. It's just
right.
It was a thing.
Yeah.
And then So they are these things. So I did that some of them today, and there's still design tasks for me to do on the game. But I have left it. It gone past design freeze, so it's now the baton is entirely with Paul, and that's another thing. We try to see the games as the processes, and not have teams as the process, so to speak. So the important thing is that the game is the process, and there's always one person leading this process, but it's not the same person throughout, because that would be inefficient.
But I think the game would suffer because of that.
The game would suffer, and several different.
All right, things. So to make sure that I understand that, then, so basically, I don't want to say you've washed your hands of Pax Viking. That's a bit of an overreach. But what I mean by that is you're done with it and you're on to other things. But if they have questions or they have something this, hey, what do you think about this? Then they bring you back in, and it's not you going to them with it. Yes. And that's the significant change.
That's the significant change. And also part of this, we're working, as you know, for the first time extensively with a rules editor for Pax Viking. That's the first game we do that extensively with, and that's also, of course, something you I would say probably now. I can't be sure, but I think you probably don't want to start that until after the design freeze, because for obvious reasons.
have the editor just pulling out their hair, going, "No,
Yeah,
no, I already have.
exactly.
No, you can't
No,
change
exactly.
that now." Yes, yeah, I totally agree with
But
that.
there are small changes that could occur, and we have a process for how we are communicating this to the rules editor, but that's just tweaks that someone else, it comes to us and we feel we need to make the tweaks, and it's not going to be more than small things because of that and so on. So yeah.
All right.
Uh,
So timeline
I
now.
don't wash my hands, but I'm working on other things. I'm working on the games that we are going to release in our upcoming Kickstarters.
Right. That's what I meant by that is you have
Yeah.
moved on to other things. You're still there if they need
Right.
to present them to you, but you are not actively working Pax Viking. It's only you're there almost like as a reference type.
And to be honest, I'm quite pragmatic as a person, and one part of me answering the question to when is a game done, it's also about the reality, the economic reality and responsibility of running a company which is now having more and more employees. You need to be able to understand that you can't continue working on the game more than a certain amount of time, because both of limited time that can go into a product from economic perspective, but also various other things that comes into play. People are waiting for it. People are assigned to do this at a certain time. You disrupt other people's schedules, and so forth. So a game is also done when I have a deadline to deliver it. And when you work with Kickstarters, I know we have so far been a little late on all of them, but we have also constantly been less and less late, and we work towards getting a process when we match the time.
So let me to put you on the spot a little, which trumps what?
Please.
If push comes to shove and there is something that gets discovered over the process of a game, which trumps what? Is it the development of the game or the deadline? Which is more important? I mean, obviously they're both important.
Yeah,
I understand that.
I mean, if we talk about deadline when it's in a small sense. I mean, I promised to deliver this game on this and this date. It's a very understanding community. I worked in the film business. It's much harder there. If you said this is going to be a release on 100 or 1,000 cinemas all over the United States and 1,000 in Europe on December 25, you can't back down on that one. You just have to deliver, no matter what. Games, board games in particular, but also actually digital games can be quite
big time. Things slide all the time. Of course.
And then everybody understand that this is for the better of the game. I mean, trust that the people do this for the better of the game. In 99% of the cases.
Sure.
Then you have some people saying, "Oh, why did you do this?" But it is, and so it's a balance. So I'm not saying that it's a black and white thing, and I'm dodging the bullet here, but it's not black and white, because sometimes it's okay because of the better of the game to not follow the deadline. But what I wanted to say was that I'm understanding the reality, and a deadline which we told to some people who pre-ordered the game, but also a deadline which might disrupt the schedule for people within our own company or other people if we have external designers which have done game and we have promised to start working on these games at a certain point, it's you have responsibilities and you promise things all over. So these things matter a lot, I would say. The deadlines matter a lot. So do I have to choose one or the other? I think if I have to choose, I would choose the deadline.
Really interesting. Yeah. But at the same time, you're willing to give a little bit on the deadline if the game needs it.
Yes.
But to a point. I mean, there becomes a certain threshold that you're like, okay, at this point, we're splitting hairs. No, put it to bed. Out.
Definitely, yes, go. Very much so. And sure. and if it was, if it had to, I'm the kind of guy or person who think that there is rarely one certain answer to a question, such as
I agree. Yes.
Which is the best way we can do this game in, and there might be many ways which are better than others, and I'm such as when we're doing. I mean, when I'm collaborating with Phil, it works very well because I can easily let go of ideas I have or tweak ideas I have, and can easily get other people. I collaborate with people, and that might be a reason why I do it and why it works very well. I don't want to take full credit, but for my part, it works because I'm flexible. I don't put so much prestige into it, and that would be something that goes into when the game is done. There is a deadline now. Okay, well, the game has to be done now. It's a good game, and it could be done in other ways, but it is what it is. And now it's to be released and for people to play. And if it doesn't work, there's always a second edition if we want to, or
Not that if it doesn't work, but if there were things that could have been done differently, there's always a different.
Yes, true.
Yeah. Understood.
That's a
I understand. I was just clarifying to make sure. Yeah. I know what you meant, but again, there's that 1% out there.
It's an interesting difference between games and many other art forms, that you can actually have a game. You can actually have a piece of art that does not work, and you don't really have that in. It might not work in the painting, for example, because people don't see what you want them to see, but they see something, and even if the painting falls down from the wall, it's not about the painting. But games can actually be broken,
yes,
and that's quite unique about them. And of course you need to avoid that, but that's usually shaved away even before design release, I would say, almost.
Okay, all right. So, what motivates you? Who do you design games for? Who are you designing these games for?
Well,
are they for you?
No.
Okay.
No, I'm designing games for the players, and I'm in front of all inspired by making more people discover board games, for sure. But of course, it's important to me to play games with my friends and family, but the kind of games I design, it's not always easy to get people to design them. When I did music, it was easier to get people to come and see my when I was playing music. If I did movies, people came to watch the movies. If I do games, people buy the games, but they don't always play them.
Fair enough.
So, but I do get inspired by. I want to make the games for of course, my close friends, family, but it's broader than that. Definitely, I'm so inspired by people playing the game in various places in the world and getting inspired from them, all the way from this thing of the game making someone see something in a new way. I talked about before, the robots and the space or whatever. Especially High Frontier has so much potential in that regard, but also the people finding board gaming, the rich world of board gamings, to try and discover that the rich world of board gamings, and it's such a good community. It's such a camaraderie, so it's, for the most part, for the vast majority, it's just friendliness, and I think it comes with a product we are working with. It's a product that generates friendliness, that generates good things in humans through that we meet and through that we do stuff in a way which not as prestigious because it's a game and playing, and the faculty of playing is central to our development from childhood onwards. It taps into so many good and interesting and valuable things, and I love the fact that I'm doing things that people can interact with that makes this in these ways.
I think this
I'm
is
designing for the players.
I think this is going to be eye-opening for folks. So this has been good, because I'll be honest. I mean, it feels like you're almost the silent person there, because I feel like Phil casts such a big shadow, because everybody knows it, and when I say everybody, I mean everybody who enjoys these type of games. Yeah. Phil Eklund casts such a large shadow over this niche within the board gaming hobby that it's almost like he sucks all the air out of the room. Not Phil himself, because Phil is the most unassuming guy you could ever want to meet. But it's really interesting to hear your viewpoint on all of this and how passionate you are about wanting to make these games and collaborate with, whether it's Matt Eklund, Phil Eklund, talking about Clay over at Capstone, and just being able to reach more people and draw more people into this.
All that. Yeah. Yes, I'm totally for that. I'm all for that, and we are actively bringing more. We are actively bringing people into. No, what do we say? We are actively working towards having external designers making games that we publish at Ion. So we have had for 2 years now, I think, an open box where people can come and present games to us, and we are always interested in hearing from people at conventions. So and we are doing one game now this autumn in the Kickstarter in late October, which is from an external designer. We met at Essen, and we have more of that. Would be that we have this is my idea, to have the High Frontier modular system.
I was just going to bring this up, so good. All right.
Towards all these, as I said, I love people who are taking house rules to a new level and designing fan-based content to games. So I want to acknowledge that, and I want to celebrate that by making this especially dedicated community of High Frontier, giving the opportunity for them to design modules that we will actually
officially publish, right?
Publish. I mean, they are really. It's no joke. I mean, we're really printing them in thousands in for real. And it's if you have a passion for making games, which is another thing. I love doing this. It's great, and I wish others could have the same opportunity if it's in it for them, if they want to. And then that in this way, doing it it's a small path, and not many people will be doing it. You have your life, you have your careers, but the people who design modules for High Frontier, I hope, will find it their way there, and we can do modules together for a long time moving forward. And the main idea behind that, the spark behind that, is to give the dedicated community an opportunity to actually meet an audience, because that's when you take your own design things to another level. You can do things, which is great, to do your things for your play group, and maybe that's all you want to do. But to some people, it's such a rewarding and evolving thing to actually do it so that others play it, and to do all these things that needs to be thought upon when you publish it. and to have the experience of people playing it and getting the feedback from totally random people from all over the world. That's a great thing, and yeah, so I want that to be part of it, and I want that to be part of everybody at Ion Game Design. So everybody at Ion Game Design will have an opportunity to design a game. Basime is working on the game design.
Really?
Yeah, everybody's going to do at least one game.
That's awesome. Obviously, they all want to.
I won't force them. But I think, as far as I know, no one has. I don't know if everybody will do it, but it's at least something I actively say and encourage them to do. But it won't work or be right if they don't do it. We need to wait until they desire it.
Until the fire is there, right?
Until the fire is there, and I can't promise everybody will have that fire, but it's an
you
honest
encourage
and
that.
real offer, and I encourage it.
That's awesome. And on that note, I mean, you look at there are a number of designers out there that have started with designing, whether it's an Age of Steam map, whether it's an Alban Viard or a Vital Lacerda or whatever. These guys started by taking a known quantity. In your case, what you're talking about with High Frontier, find a game you're passionate about, and then design a module. And who knows, might have budding designers that go from there. That's their impetus to start. And it goes from there. I think that's awesome. I think that's an amazing thing.
Yeah,
there's no downside to it.
No. I mean, it's of course a risk. Designing a game is a costly thing, but I think it's High Frontier is a good place to do it, because there are a lot of passionate people who like the game, and hopefully it won't backfire economically on us, but I don't think so. But it's an investment. It's time.
Of course.
People cost money.
Yep.
Time for people cost money. It takes a lot of time for us to take a product from the idea to the factory. It costs a lot to print it. It costs a lot to send it out. All of that. So it's for sure a risk, but I don't think I want it any other way. I hope, and if someone gets to experience designing a game and all of that I told just recently, that's great. If someone in addition finds a path to follow their true passion and start working with this, even better. So who knows? But it's not only High Frontier, as I said. We're also opening up our eyes, or have had for a while now, and we have an internal process for looking at the games and so forth. So
that's awesome.
We encourage others to we will publish games from other people than the people at Ion and me and Phil, obviously.
Cool. So, all right, quick update. Pax Viking, where are you officially within that game, like time frame? Where are things with Ion and Pax Viking and High Frontier?
Yeah, so High Frontier, we have got the production sample for the core game, add-on 1, which is the neoprene mat, the module 1 and module 2, and I think we received that 2 days ago. Or 2 or 3, and we looked on it, and I don't think there was some little detail, but not much. So I think yesterday Basime or Paul, whoever had that, they collaborate sometimes. But anyway, someone gave the green light to mass produce. Some of the components has already been mass produced, because we know we were not going to change them. So some of the components have already been done, but now they're doing the big printing thing. So that's and they are. It's being probably spawned out of a printer in China as we speak.
Awesome.
Rulebook after rulebook. When it comes to Pax Viking, it's been playtesting quite a lot. It's passed design freeze. The great illustrator Madeleine, who has been working on this, has done most of her work on it, but there is some finalizing things. on it that will be done when she comes back from vacation, which would be the week after next. And then at that point, she and Paul will together work on the rule book. And depending on how, I mean, they can do work before the final rules editing, which is been done currently. As I said, it's been going on for 2 weeks or so. It will continue to go on for a few weeks. And then the rules edit is done. So, and then we will make the final rule book and the final card merge. The art for the cards are 95% done. The card content is maybe 90% done. We have a few cards which are more generic, and we don't want them to be generic. My goal, I don't know if we're gonna make that, but my goal is that none of the 221 cards or whatever it is in it, tiles.
You're fine. Relax. I know there was a big hubbub. Hold on. This is a card. That's a tile. It's the same thing. It doesn't matter, people. But yes.
So, anyways, it's become a joke, actually.
I know it totally has. Yes.
So my little ambition, which I don't know if I'm gonna meet,
is have individual artwork for each of them.
No. There will be individual artwork for all of them, I think, but that the effect on all of them will be individually different.
Okay, all right. So no duplicate actions and effects. Gotcha.
Okay. Maybe. I don't think. Yeah, well, it may be that we will have some of the trade cards, for example. It will be just ridiculous to try to find something. It's just you're doing a trade with a certain commodity.
Yeah, sure.
We'll see. But anyways, to put it short, then I think the rules editing and the example illustrations might be the most uncertain point. But other than that, and if that works smoothly, we'll probably have a production sample being made in early August. And if that production sample looks great, hopefully being able to, mid-August, late August, start mass production.
Awesome.
That would be, then we would have, the ambition is to have it delivered to people before Christmas. I think it said October in the Kickstarter or so. So then we would be 1.5 months late, but that's less delay than the previous game and less delay than the previous game. And
so you're getting better, right?
Yeah, we're getting better, and this is a plan. I mean, you can't. We were at a pace where we were maybe 6 or 7 months behind, and you can't switch that. It's like a Atlant cruiser thing. You can't turn it
on a dime, right? It's a slow general. Get better, yeah. That makes sense.
Our slow general roll is going steady and in the right direction.
And the biggest thing that I've learned is communicate. As long as you communicate with people and let them know, then people can be very patient in understanding.
It's very good, and that's something we have invested a lot in this year. At Ion, we work. This is another of Basima's initiatives. We have a theme for each year, and last year that theme was structure. And this year the theme is marketing, and that's why we have. And it's a little bit like what I have for games, that there is 1 or 2 key areas of focus, which I borrowed from Dice. So this year's key area of focus for Ion is marketing, and then that's given priority. It's given time, and in front of all, it's been given place in the budget, money. So we are investing in making a good setup improved setup when it comes to marketing. And one important part of this, we don't do much direct sales to players other than Kickstarter, but to communicate to players directly, to the people playing the games and the people who have pre-ordered it or whatever. That's important. And then so we have some new people brought into the company who is going to assist Basima and me and Phil, who's been the 3 working the most with it previously, to do this. yeah, so.
Well, I'm grateful
Efficiency.
for the partnership that I have with you guys as far
Yes,
as
that's great.
for the
And when it
playthroughs.
comes to High
Yeah.
Frontier, so you will receive a copy as soon as we can get one to you.
Yep.
We might send the only production sample we have at our office to you. We'll see. But it also, Basim said that it might have been that they made a few of them at Longpack, so we will send it to you as soon as we can.
Yep. And I'm gonna be streaming Pax Viking on Tabletop Simulator in a couple weeks. For
you
folks,
are?
I am. So it's going to be
I didn't know that.
it's obviously it's not going to be the official one, because I want to actually have the copy here in front of me
Yes.
and everything.
Yeah.
But I think folks will be excited to see where things have come with Pax Viking.
Yeah.
And where things are with that.
Yeah, and I would like to say that it's been a great experience, inspired by the strange time we live in now.
Seriously.
But it's been a great experience to put so much focus into the digital version of Pax Viking.
Right.
So much so that we will probably, or most likely, continue to have very well produced digital versions of the games earlier on, and make well produced versions of the games for most or all of our games. We are doing it ourselves with the great help of enthusiasts, in particular Sam Williams, who is great, and also Stefano Tine. But then, Stefano is doing Vassal modules. Sam is doing both Vassal modules and Tabletop Simulator modules. And the designer of Module 3, I might say something about Module 3.
For High Frontier, you're talking about. Yep.
Yes, so High Frontier, you asked about High Frontier, and yes, what I described was Module 1, 2, and the core game, which was the Kickstarter from this autumn, and then we have the Module 3 from the spring Kickstarter. Situation there is the Justin, who is co-designer of that, who has done the official Tabletop Simulator version of it, which we then, given the times, have used for playtesting. So he's doing that specific Tabletop Simulator version. Otherwise, Sam is doing them. So that game is in playtest. I would say the rules are. I playtested it myself a few times the last weeks. I think the rules. I think it's great fun to start with. It's a great concept to have a game where one war will probably occur, not certainly, but probably occur during the game, and that war will probably end, and that's it. You don't have war springing out and back. But you will probably have a war situation, which dramatically changes the game when it's running, and I think that's so much better than having a conflict, a conflict layer upon the entire game, which will affect all of it, and have that to be balanced. It's so much harder. So that's a great concept. And it's,
so having it almost like an event type thing, to where it's
like a giant event, which occurs, and there is a whole set of rules that then comes into play. So we play tested this, and from this I would say the rules is fairly stable. I think Phil agrees, and we are that is it's not past design freeze, but it's being they have started doing the rules layout. So, and that the box will be the same as the other module boxes. So it's a lot of the layout format, and the typography and everything will be the same as before. So it's easier that way. And then we have two interesting add-ons, which is also being produced at the same time. So all of that will hopefully be ready to be getting there. It's a little behind Pax Viking, I would say.
Okay.
And we'll see if it will maybe be a few weeks later that we get that production sample.
But again, given the world situation right now. I think everyone around the world is being pretty patient with things, I would
Yeah, I mean,
hope.
board gaming community is patient to start with, and then we have
Agreed.
the given situation.
Yeah.
It's even more patient, and it's actually been a little difficult because this has affected China a lot,
Yep.
the affected China during the winter and early spring, and there's still ripple effects to that. So it's not only it's delaying our process as well. So yeah.
All right. Well,
But anyways,
yeah, the last thing I have for you is a little bit off the beaten path. It's a series of 6, or in this case actually 7, thoughtful questions, quick fire off the top of your head. You ready?
all right.
All right, here
I'm
we go.
ready.
All right, number 1. How old would you be if you didn't know how old you are? How old do you think you are? Like,
27.
all right. If you could master one skill that you don't have right now, what would it be? I mean, it could be cooking, it could be, cross-country skiing, it could be anything.
Yeah, I think something athletic. I think maybe decathlon.
Oh, wow, there you go. All right, I dig it. If you could have dinner and conversation with one person in history, who would it be?
Ooh. That's interesting. I guess I answered that question sometime in some conversation, but it's to give a. Does the future count? I think I
Sure.
want to know about the future. So I might choose my great granddaughter or son 10 generations in the future.
That might be my all-time favorite answer for that question. That is
Okay.
amazing. I love that. Nobody ever thinks to go forward. I didn't until just now.
Okay, there you go.
That's awesome. All right. What are 3 things you want more of right now? Could be physical, could be time, could be characteristics, ideas, whatever. 3 things that you want more of.
Time, definitely. Or maybe change that to immortality. I want more immortality.
Okay.
Then I would like to say more passion and understanding in the world.
I agree.
I kind of sometimes am baffled by the stupidity, and I think it's based upon unnecessary prestige and belief in old fairy tales, and it's just more passion and understanding. I think is the key word behind it. Being good to each other, and and the third one, I would say to have more and more people discover the wonderful world of board gaming.
Love it. All right. What do you appreciate most in your friends?
Honesty.
Agreed. All right.
Yeah.
So last one is kind of a bonus question. With the pandemic going on right now,
all right,
what do you miss most that you can't do or can't enjoy that you could before? Or that this has opened up your eyes to, either way?
Open up my eyes to? Do you mean that that's something I can do now which I couldn't before? Or?
Sure. Either direction. Yeah. Or something you desperately miss that you can't do right now.
Oh, well, I think social interaction is meeting people, friends and
Mm-hmm.
family is a little bit more difficult now, but which I kind of, meet people and play games together is the obvious answer here. But meeting people in general, but I have to say one thing that at the same time, as I said, with the digital versions, it brought my attention to how this could actually work quite well. But one thing that it brought my attention to was unexpected is how much I enjoy people actually paying attention to washing their hands and such, because I've always been like this. I've always been cautious and aware of. I worked my part-time work as a student was at the hospital. Maybe that affected me, but I have always had an awareness and understanding about these things, and people are ridiculed sometimes for pointing these things out.
Bet they're
And
not laughing now.
They are not ridiculing me now. And that's a discovery that people are finding this. So I don't know. There is something there.
All right.
Which surprised.
Yeah.
But
Fair enough.
It's of course a horrible situation for many people. It's really, really bad. And at the same time, it's there is flu all the time. There are hundreds of thousands of people dying every year. It's just that we're now more aware of it. But it's also erratic, strange disease in ways we haven't really seen before, and
it's getting worse here in the States, at least, which.
Yeah, it's going
the wrong direction.
As expected, back and forth, but it's definitely going in the wrong direction. Maybe I'm not following the details on a daily basis. On
You're better off.
Yes, I think I won't be able, for to start with when it talks. When you come to, I don't want to use the word stupidity, but still, these statistics is so off. Some people are counting old people, some people are not counting old people. Just recently, the organization pointed out problems in Sweden, but they are only because we're now testing people more, and then. Well, you have to see the whole picture, and they're so rare that the whole picture is shown in media. So I sometimes prefer to research it, a little retrospect.
Fair enough.
So I'm not following it on a daily basis. Actually.
To be honest with you, I think mental health dictates that maybe that's okay, right? To get away from it a little bit. So,
yes, sure. I think you shouldn't be oblivious, but it's
right.
Sometimes you should know if this is valuable information or not, or at least think about that. I think sometimes I take a step back and think, what's my purpose here? Is it to read the news, or is it to design board games? It's to design board games. So then I do some board game design.
I like that. Plus, where you are right there near the coast that you showed me earlier, that's beautiful out there. That's awesome.
You see a little piece of the ocean right there.
Just yep. That's awesome.
I see more of it if I open
there you go.
Up.
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know. Does it show?
Yes, I can see it. That's beautiful. That's awesome. So.
Anyways.
All right. Well, hey.
So that's a nice place.
I definitely appreciate.
I normally live in Stockholm.
I appreciate you taking the time to do this. It's been nice to catch up with you as well, since we haven't been able to chat a whole lot since Essen and everything. So for those wondering, all of these games are going to be coming soon here on the channel. Biogenesis, Greenland, Neanderthal. Well, I guess they're actually down below you. Pax Viking, High Frontier 4, all of that. So looking forward. Yep. So looking forward
to it as well.
So, all right. So Jon, how can folks get in touch with you? Because I know there's the Ion Game Design Twitter and all that, but if people want to reach out, how can they get in touch with you?
Well, if they want to get in touch with me, I think, I guess sending an email would be the best, which is jon.manker@iongamedesign.com. Of course, they can find me on Board Game Geek. I'm on Facebook and all these places, but I don't log into Facebook more than maybe twice a month. I am a Board Game Geek, but not regularly. And even the email is sometimes takes a week before I get around looking at it. So, but maybe the email would be the best.
Okay. All right.
My username on Board Game Geek is Grandmaster Chi. It's an old one. Anyways, and you can change it. You know, that's just their system.
Right.
But I like it in a way. So, but anyway, it's Grandmaster Chi. And if you look at Instagram, and maybe Instagram is the social media I'm most active at, and from, I wouldn't say ordered by, but anyways, kind of inspired, or it would be a good thing if I was a bit more active there. So I will start to be more active on Instagram. And there I'm also Jon Manker, just my word in one word.
There you go. Awesome. Well, thanks a lot for doing this. All right. I
Yeah,
know
thank you.
took a couple hours away from family time, so I definitely appreciate it.
It's worth it. Well worth it. Double up and triple.
All right. Well, you and the family and Besame and Paul and everybody over there, stay safe.
You too.
And I guess we'll see you next year, maybe sometime in person, hopefully, maybe.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, in person, who knows?
Right.
Hopefully next year, probably not this year, but who knows?
Right.
We have had. I don't think it's. I don't know. There's been some ideas of going to the States very late this year, but it doesn't look good right now.
Well, hey, you ever stop by Boston? You have a place, so that would be
sure.
awesome.
Yes, thank you.
All right.
That would be definitely awesome. But I look forward to talking to you digitally.
Oh, absolutely. Good. All right. Well, thank you, and thanks to everybody watching at home, or if you're listening to this.
Watching.
If you're listening to this after the fact on the podcast, thanks for listening. And yeah, check out Pax Viking and High Frontier coming out later on this year, both of them. So awesome. Thanks a lot. Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.